Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar about intermodule communication, the next step in fitting. This webinar is part of a free webinar series presented by Otometrics. We have a list of webinars going on this spring, so please make sure to check out our corporate website, otometrics.com, and look under the knowledge section. Today's presenter is Peter Kosek. Peter is a Senior Product Manager for Fitting Systems at Otometrics. And my name is Mette Bernsen. I will be the moderator, and I am from marketing in Otometrics, and I will sort of be taking care of the practical details of today's sessions. Before we start, just a few tips and tricks. All of you are muted in case you haven't noticed, and that is basically to reduce background noise during Peter's presentation. It is of course possible for you to ask questions during the session, but please use the question box in your webinar menu if you would like to do so. The questions will then be collected during the session, and once Peter has done his presentation, he will answer as many of the questions he can. In case we have questions we don't get to, we will make sure to send you an email right after the webinar is over. If you experience any technical problems during the webinar, please send me a message directly. You find me also in the right side menu under the moderator part, and I will do everything I can to try to help you. You might experience some delays in the slides during the session. That is completely normal, and they will catch up automatically as we go. So I'll hand over to Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm happy to see that people find today's topic interesting. For me personally, this is a very interesting topic that I've been following for many years now. Well, on the agenda, we will go through the introduction, background. We will dig a little deeper into the functionality and benefits, try to draw some conclusions from that, and then see what kind of questions that you might have. And please do not hesitate asking questions. We just need to have as much discussion on the topic as possible. Well, all right. Well, just to recap once for all, because in this, as in many other industries, there are so many acronyms. So IMC is Intermodule Communication. Well, within our industry, we are dealing with modules like diagnostic modules, audiometry modules, fitting modules, measurement modules. So this is very much about the communication between modules and the integration of them, or maybe even interaction between modules. So this is just to kind of get this foundation in place. But originally, where does this come from? Well, it's actually as part of the initial spirit of HIMSA bringing the industry together. All of us in the industry are working with something that HIMSA brought forward, like NOAA system and other things. And HIMSA has brought forward an industry standard together with its licensees. And IMC is actually one of them. IMC discussions were recently restarted and are now driven by HIMSA and its licensees once again, because what was originally introduced is now have to be brought into the needs of today so that the original idea gets current, if you will. So as you will see in the last part, or the remaining part of this webinar, we'll be talking about what IMC really does. But why did we thought of IMC in the first place? Well, first of all, there is a gap in the fitting workflow. The very many steps are not really suited to work together, even though they should. Fitting modules and measurement modules are separated and don't talk to each other. There is some information that isn't shared, either because sharing is not possible, or maybe for political reasons certain information is not to be shared on purpose with other kind of actors in a system. And unfortunately, the result is that quality of fitting is inconsistent, because more things could be done in the fitting process, but it just isn't possible or feasible. So all of that points at the activities within IMC in bringing it up to date and it's looking into functionality and data, because one thing is that we have to make sure that the systems are doing certain things, but also we have identified there is more information that has to be shared, and maybe that information has to be different, so it's not only about being able to exchange information, but also expand the type of information that we have to share. So IMC is actually a very technical thing, meaning it's a technical software interface, but what it really enables us to do is to integrate fitting modules and measurement modules, as we already discussed. And the interesting part of this is that the integration can take place across manufacturers, meaning that different manufacturers can team up, and still, because of the nature of the technical software interface, they can provide or facilitate the integration. From a functional point of view, the fitting modules are enabled to control real ear and coupler measurements. So that means that there are many things that can work on the based on the knowledge inside the fitting module, which is much more detailed than the information that other types of modules have available. Being able to control measurements is one thing. The other thing is actually that fitting modules will be able to receive measurement results from measurement modules, so that basically the curves that previously are viewed in the measurement modules will now be available in the fitting modules. You may already here see kind of a picture of the change in the way of working and the change in the graphical user interface that IMC can provide. One thing that IMC is really eliminating is the issue of, so which target am I fitting to? Because that's a very frequently asked question in order to find out. So when I do measurement with my verification equipment, how do I get the target from the fitting software into my measurement equipment, or vice versa? And all this is a very practical example of the lack of integration which is predominant in this industry today. As fitting modules are able to control the measurements and are able to show live measurements inside their graphical user interface, they can really define various workflows. Those can be depending on the type of hearing aid, the type of patient, the nature of the visit that the client and the fitter are meeting about. And this, of course, gives a wide variety of uses. Of course, as the context of fitting is very much defined by the fitting software, that workflows that the fitting modules can facilitate can be much smoother, because there is much less complexity in handling two systems, meaning fitting software and the measurement software, once things have been combined and integrated. Ultimately, automation of the adjustment and verification process can take place, because again, if the fitting module is able to control the measurements, is able to receive the results, there can be a recurring interaction or an iteration taking place that is able to make programming or adjustments to the hearing aid based on the information from the verification process. So this is more or less kind of the headlines for IMC in its ways of operation and its applications. Just to have a more graphical view at with or without IMC scenarios, looking at the workflow, we always start with the diagnostics part. We have a tone audiogram, we may have a speech audiogram, and the next step is opening a fitting module where you have some kind of adjustment workflow. Some of the things that go into the adjustment workflow may be the hearing aid type or the type of venting that you have, some of the advanced features that particular hearing aid model may have, and other handlings which are very much confined within the scope of the fitting module. But then, if you want to take things further and make sure that you assure the quality of the fitting and can verify the performance of the hearing aid, then you enter the measurement modules. Measurement module typically also has a measurement workflow and has a target-based fitting based on different parameters. And here you'll be able to see that, of course, some of the target calculation parameters or other elements that may be more or less appropriate to information that the fitting module only holds. Already here you can sense the disconnect. Combined with measurement conditions and the data, currently we have this barrier that is not really helping anybody. We are relying on many manual actions between the fitting module and the measurement module because these two modules are in separate contexts. So some of the things that we have to deal with today to overcome this barrier is to use functions such as on-top mode, which definitely helps, but it's only kind of, you can almost call it a band-aid. Because seen from the operation point of view, we are dealing with two softwares, meaning we have a fitting software graphical user interface and a measurement software graphical user interface. And some of the information have to be entered manually or synchronized manually by the user, which puts an, I would call it an unnecessarily requirement onto the fitter for this to become a successful process. Looking at IMC, we still have the same workflow and still have the same modules, but what happens here is that IMC becomes the bridge between the fitting module and the measurement module. So the way that the bridge works is that now some of the information that the measurement module doesn't have can be transferred automatically from the fitting module to the measurement module, so that you can say that the measurement module is acting on the behalf of the fitting module. Once there are measurement information and results, those can be fed directly into the fitting module so that the fitting module can take action. And depending on how fitting modules are programmed, more or less user interaction is necessary. So now these two modules, meaning the fitting module and the measurement module, are working in the same context, and also only one graphical user interface has to be managed by the user. So definitely you'll be able to notice kind of the shift and the improvement in making things easier, making things more seamless in this cooperation or interaction between fitting modules and measurement modules in a fitting workflow. So the new workflow, what would it look like? Well, it actually depends. It's a really unclear and blurred answer that I wish I could have given a more strict one. But the fact is that the fitting strategy is defined by the hearing instrument manufacturers. So they define which workflows to implement, to incorporate, and make available. And then, of course, those requirements have to be matched with the capabilities of the attached instrumentation. So depending on how these matches are put together, you will see various combinations of fitting software and equipment out there once manufacturers come onto the market in a larger scale with integrated solutions. And probably depending on which fitting strategies certain manufacturers want to promote. But what will it mean to the hearing care? Well, first of all, as you can see already, the fitting will be easier. There will be less graphical user interface to operate, and of course there will be a natural shift towards working in the fitting modules more. Based on the integration and the lack of handling or manual handling that the fitter is to take care of, we'll see more consistent results and client satisfaction, because also verification will be a seamless part of this new workflow facilitated by IMC. Then, of course, more hearing impaired people will get access to treatment, because as that treatment or hearing aid fitting will be easier to make, it'll become more available to professionals and it'll be more available to hearing impaired people. And it's important to notice that IMC is taking part of the fitting workflow. It is not kind of embracing the entire fitting workflow, leaving plenty of space for the softer type of fitting. So IMC in this case is the simplification of the kind of deterministic fit to target approach. That is a very important message that we have to remember. So the soft elements in the fitting protocol will be the counseling, the training, but also the suggestion of using additional devices. There are a lot of streamers or remote microphones out here that kind of complement the functionality of the hearing instruments. So that's a very important part, to get more time for that. So all in all, it carries a long list of positives with it. And who will benefit? Well, I've taken the liberty to put IMC in the middle. And then, well, the first person or group that will benefit from IMC are the hearing impaired people. They will get better fittings. They will be able to act better. They will be able to kind of get back into the social life with a more professional treatment. And of course, as the hearing impaired people are in a much better condition, kind of hearing-wise, the significant others will also be relieved from a lot of special taken care of, at least in the acoustical environment. That you will see a more relaxed atmosphere where the hearing impaired people will be acting with their significant others. The hearing care professionals will have a better time to actually make use of these soft skills to make sure that the counseling is right, that the questionnaires and the understanding of the problem of the individual clients is taken well into the fitting. And then the equipment manufacturers will be able to help better by providing verification to the process, so that the individual element of the fitting and the individual results that each client requires are taken into account, feeding that into hearing aid instrument manufacturers so that the hearing instruments know exactly how they perform and how the entire process is brought into something, again, which points back to the hearing impaired and the individual fitting things. So that's kind of a circle that goes round where IMC is in the middle. You could also put the hearing impaired person in the middle and see what actors are around that person, where IMC is the driver. It's just a different way of showing the interaction. So this was part of today's webinar, and now for some questions.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for giving us some insight into IMC and what we can expect from it, basically. Yeah, I mean, now it's time for questions from the audience. You can use the question box to the right on your screen. We already have a few questions, so we can get started on those at least. Good. First, Peter, let me see here. Do you think it will increase cost of service?
Actually, I'm convinced it will not, even though you can say that in many sites verification equipment is not in place. But looking at the implemented verification equipment, even because of the extra incurred cost, you will see that the efficiency growth, including the increase in quality and the increase in throughput, I would think that the bottom line of that calculation will be that the cost of services will not increase, but the quality will increase and throughput. So the short answer is no.
Okay. Let me see the next one. Do you think IMC will be a threat to hearing care professionals?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You would think that I've written it myself. Well, actually, I don't think so, because it's really what one of the slides was saying is that this is only kind of taking over a little, or it's actually not even taking over. It's just helping on the very important but still a very deterministic part of the fitting process, meaning the fit to target. At least that's kind of one way of implementing the IMC protocol. And based on that, this is something that it's easy to do. It's only part of the process, but, and again, it's very important to state that this will just make that fitting to target step easier and leave more time to the kind of almost say the real work for the hearing care professional, and this is understanding the needs of the client and make sure that everything like lifestyle information, the comfort and audibility and all the things are taken care of by the hearing care professional. So again, here the short answer is no.
Okay, there's a question here that goes a little bit in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried that there could be concerns that this might be seen as a dumbing down of professionals?
Well, definitely I don't think that it could be seen as dumbing down of professional, but it's really good question. But seeing it from in a kind of very black and white situation, imagine that if you see a screen of a certain deviation between two curves and you have to adjust for that difference. That does not take that much skills compared to understanding the complexity of that individual patient's hearing, the understanding the complexity or the abilities of different hearing instruments and mapping those together into providing a solution to the client. That is skills to me personally, and not at all being able to click 3 times on increase gain at 750 hertz. So you can say that IMC is taking out the tedious thing out of something which really can be made by machines and make more time for the real human stuff.
Then we have another one here. Will all manufacturers implement IMC?
Well, we don't know. Definitely there is a huge interest in this industry of what IMC is about, but I will say that time will show, and I sincerely hope that everybody looks at IMC as being something useful, important, and back to the hearing aid manufacturers, I truly believe that from a business perspective, the extra reach that IMC will give is definitely in the kind of business interest of hearing aid manufacturers. So I think they should, and I hope they will.
Okay, I have a question here. If the desire is to be industry standard, how can we, the professionals, help to push this?
I would say that, as you may notice in one of my previous slides, I mentioned that that the workflows that will be implemented are very much ones that are defined by the hearing aid manufacturers. So they really, the input that they will get will put pressure on them. So I would say contact the hearing aid manufacturers that you work with and say that this is something that would be very useful to you, and then if enough people will do that, that will definitely up the priority with that hearing aid manufacturer to get into implementing IMC.
Mm-hmm. Do you think IMC will give better access to hearing care services?
Definitely, definitely. That's something that is kind of the most important element of IMC, I would say, because still so many people are poorly helped, either because they are only kind of being given very simplistic service, or maybe no service at all. So I think that being able to give easier service is it will increase the appearance of hearing care, so that it will get out to other sites, to other customers, to other countries, so that more people can get the help that they really need. Because we all know how crucial it is and what kind of impacts on social and psychological effects that lack of hearing or hearing impairment has.
Okay, thank you. And we have another one coming in here. how will it improve the quality of services?
Well, the quality of service will be improved because we simply make it easier to verify. So actually verification will be done. But still the complexity of having to manually synchronize or set the same parameters in the fitting software and then the measurement software, all that will kind of be seamlessly integrated so that all the manual and of course all the kind of human errors that could potentially come into place, they will be, if not eliminated, they will be minimized. So, so from that verification, individual treatment, and all this goes into improving the quality of service.
Yeah, I think we have time for a final question. When everything is going more mobile, how will IMC work with the fitting software? Start with that.
Yes, that's a very good kind of futuristic question, but I mean, today you can say that yes, more and more new devices, meaning non-computers, are used in the process, and I will say that once you can say the current way of using instrumentation gets settled and gets implemented, I am pretty sure that manufacturers will find ways to use new types of hardware platforms to drive this, because in general we should think of technology as a help and not a burden. So as more solutions find way into new technology platforms, I would not I would never suspect that IMC would not go that route also.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. I think we will close the question session here. If any of you have additional questions coming up, please feel free to email either Peter or myself after the session today, and we will do our best to answer your questions. This webinar will be available in a recorded version as well. A link will be sent to all of you as soon as we have it ready, and it can also be found on the Otometrics website along with a list of upcoming webinars this spring. So this is basically it for today. Please make sure to spend a few minutes giving us feedback on today's webinar. A survey will